The most important principle is we make irrational goals a reality. So our goals are irrational. For many, we said, okay, let's reach 1 million yaperos, everybody laughed. And we said, okay, now it's 10 million, people laughed. The Peruvian economy depends on us. If Yape is out for an operational stability issue for 1 hour, that means that 100,000 people got into a taxi and couldn't pay it when they went out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fintech Leaders, coming to you from New York City. I'm your host, Miguel Armaza. I'm a co-founder of Gilgamesh Ventures, a venture capital fund that backs early-stage fintech entrepreneurs in the US and Latin America. If you enjoyed this conversation, I invite you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so more people can learn about fintech leaders. In this episode, I sit down with Raimundo Morales, CEO of Yape, the dominant fintech app in Peru, and certainly one of the biggest consumer fintechs in the world. For context, Yape has 16 million users, which represents 80% of Peru's total population. On average, they process 550 million payments a month and are doubling in volume on a yearly basis. They are big and extremely important for the country. If Latin America runs on WhatsApp, it's fair to say Peru runs on Yape. In this episode, we discuss the strategy that led them to onboard 65% of Peru's adult population as daily active users in just 8 years. Yape was built within Credit Corp, a $14 billion publicly traded company listed on the New York Stock Exchange. How were they able to build a fintech disruptor within a large corporation? The road to building a super app, why you should always set irrational goals, winning the war on cash, and a lot more. Raimundo, welcome to Fintech Leaders. Thanks for joining us all the way from Lima, Peru, right?
Yes. No, thanks, Miguel, for having me. Very, very happy to join your podcast.
I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure you're the first Peruvian CEO to join us. But that's for good reason, because you are leading Yape. And I think most people are going to be very surprised and positively surprised to learn about kind of the scale of the company and kind of the magnitude of the impact that you're having. I want to start there, though. I want to start kind of hearing from you about Yape. How would you describe what the company is doing today? And then maybe we can talk about more details.
So Yape, originally, we launched it as a wallet, basically for P2P or P2M payments here in Peru. We launched in 2017. Fast forward a few years, today we have 16 million total users out of a adult population of 20 million. So 80% of adults in Peru are yaperos, and like 65% of total adults are active yaperos. So today we are the app most used or most recognized by Peruvians, very focused on making everyday payments. The average yapero does over 40 payments a month, so that's more than almost one and a half payments a day on average. We have 550 million payments a month, and have recently, or in the last couple of years, started to implement new verticals related to different types of payments, bill payments, mobile top-ups, etc. Launched a lending a unit which is disbursing 350,000 loans every month, and have recently launched a marketplace where we have kind of the biggest promotion app in the country and have also a store, right? A marketplace where we sell a lot of products and specific things like gaming, ticketing for events, etc.
Certainly impressive scale. And I'm hearing a lot of parallels with a story that listeners will be familiar with, and that's Kaspi in Kazakhstan. And in fact, that's how we connected after my episode with Mikhail Lamtadze from Kaspi. You guys reached out, and then I was very excited to make this happen because you've organically grown this brand across the country, right? But tell us a bit about your involvement in the building, because uh, something that you mentioned to me in the past was you were helping the company from outside. You were giving a lot of advice, but then eventually Gianfranco, who's the CEO of your parent company, BCP, he just said, "Hey, why don't you stop telling me what to do and join us and do it yourself?" You know? So how has your involvement with Yape evolved over the years?
So, so yeah, definitely Caspi is an example for us. I think it's of what's possible, and we look at it very closely and try to follow a lot of the things that they've developed and believe that we're on our way or doing something similar in Peru. Probably a few years behind, but what we've built something probably as unique as what they've built there in Peru. Regarding my involvement with Yape, as I was before joining Yape, I was a partner at McKinsey. I worked a lot with BCP and Credit Corp, which is the parent company of Yape, in the digital transformation. I mean, helping the bank in the process of digital transformation back in 2016, 2017. And I remember our first discussions around what do we need to do in digital? We need to account opening, digitize, etc. But there was kind of this: we need to do something on digital payments, no? And that's where we started with this initiative, which we didn't know where it was going to go. I had a role of leading the McKinsey team, and of course the bank, Gianfranco, Francesca Raffles, who's our chief innovation officer, led the disruption team or innovation team at BCP in that time. And we decided, hey, let's do something to make payments easier. I think Venmo had been recently launched in the US. We used it as an example. Say, hey, why don't we transfer by phone number? And my involvement was a lot about bringing international practices, bringing the expertise of McKinsey leaders globally, of seeing what others are doing, and working kind of very close to the bank. No, we had this partnership, I would say, during a few years. So I was closely involved with the launch of Yape. And then in 2021, actually, we had a very interesting strategic reflection at the credit corp level, saying, hey, we started seeing all these ecosystems flourish globally, this diffusion of the boundaries between industries, right? The famous digital ecosystems, the super apps. And the question we had was, hey, should Credit Corp play in the digital ecosystem space? And the answer, and this was kind of I was leading the project there, was yes, definitely should play. It is, there might be a threat, but there's also a significant opportunity. And Yape is, or in that time, was the best vehicle to pursue that opportunity. And I think that's when we decided, and that was the moment we decided, hey, we should evolve Yape from a wallet focused mostly or only in payments at that time on peer-to-peer payments and general engagement. Let's leverage this amazing platform the bank had built already and evolve it to a super app where you do other sorts of payments, lending, marketplace, etc. And that was when Gianfranco invited me for lunch, and we had that discussion I mentioned, right, about stop telling me what to do and come and do it. And that's when I joined the Yape team, right, which I think has been an amazing change for me personally, and I'm very happy with how things are evolving and the team we've continued building and grown and are in that process every day of evolving.
Now, let's talk about something that's very important to the story of Yape. The parent company Yape is Credit Corp. It's traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Today, I believe the market cap is close to 14 billion as of the time of this recording. So it's a big corporation. And big corporations, they tend to be resistant to change, right? How do you innovate from within? That's the whole premise of the tech world, right? We are going to outcompete these large corporations. And rarely do you see internal projects get this level of success. How has the organization resisted that faith? Why has Yape worked within Credit Corp?
I think this is a very unique case study, I would say globally, in terms of an incumbent being able to build a disruptor and successfully scaling it and really entering its own space, right, differently. And I think there's a number of reasons or success factors for this, but I would say that from the start, we defined first this innovation team and that we need to do things differently and independently and say, okay, let's start building something different that will help us. I mean, the reason behind launching Yape was that we had a broader initiative that was called the War on Cash. We want to win the war on cash. In Peru, I mean, the feeling was, hey, we are the banks in terms of payments, we're fighting for the 2% of payments that are done electronically. 98% of payments are done in the physical world. Let's go after that. Our competitor is not the other banks. Our main competitor is cash. And that's kind of the first strategic reflection. We built this small startup initiative. Functionality was an app. Say, okay, go play around with it. That was a little bit to see what happens. No, that's at the beginning. It generates some excitement, but again, it was an app. It didn't have, but it was, for example, the first product launched at BCP is a 135-year institution that didn't have a business case. We had no clear business case for launching an app, a digital payments app. We said, okay, we'll bring clients, but we will definitely help win that war on cash, and to financially include a lot of people that today don't use the financial system. That was kind of the two premises under which Yape was launched. And we started with this Yape, again, built within the innovation lab of BCP. And at the beginning, it started, I mean, we've had a ton of almost failures, or almost death sentences. When we first launched, we thought it was for university students. It didn't work out. We focused on young professionals. But as we continued and being able to get the right product market fit, this started scaling. And once we got to, I don't know, like 100,000 people or so, we said, hey, we have something here. We found something. People really like it. It's easy to make transfers. Whoever uses it a lot, I mean, it's very relevant. And that's when I think this is what makes it so unique. The leadership of the bank, I mean, led by Gianfranco at that time and Francesca Raffo, said, okay, we need to scale this. But Peru is not a fully digital country, so we will use a branch network to scale. So basically it was like 350, 400 branches where, I mean, they sold credit cards, open accounts, etc. And they also helped clients download and use Yape, right? Train Yape. And so we leveraged, that's what we call the parenting advantage. And that allowed us to get to like 1 million users. Again, no business case, spending more money. And it was, okay, what is this? And I think this is part of the vision, of the long-term vision of Credit Corp is, hey, if we want to be successful, we need to really think long-term. If we're able to bring millions of clients that today we can't serve, or we don't serve in the financial because they're a bit scared of banks. Maybe the cost of serving might be too expensive in the physical world. And if we find a new way to serve them, which was Yape, in the long run, we'll figure out a way to build a sustainable business around them. And that thinking long term, decades away, not quarters away, but thinking, okay, allowed us to continue investing and growing Yape over time. After the million, then the next target was, okay, let's get to 10 million Peruvians. People thought we were completely crazy, right? The whole banking system didn't have 10 million clients when we defined that target, right? And we got there, and now we're in 16 million, right? Now our new target is that every adult in Peru is a yapero. Eventually, we'll try to work with regulators to get Yape for underage, like 16 or 15, etc. But I think that mentality of saying, hey, first, we're going against cash, and if we win that, to win that war, we need to build something different. It's not our own brand. Second, our view is very long term. We know there will be some initiatives that won't pay back in the first 2, 3, 5 years. This has to be a bet for the really long term. And third, saying, okay, let's put all the focus, the resources, and really let it move independently. So we have different governments. It needs to move faster because it's going to compete against the disruptors of this world. It can't operate like the mothership, but it can leverage the parenting advantage of the mothership. And I think those are the things that allowed us to continue growing, building this different brand that connects different to the population. And it has taken us where we are now, bringing talent that would never work in banks. I mean, when we've recruited a lot of the people, I mean, our pitch was it's not to work in the bank, it's to work in a disruptor. And we've been able to recruit people from the top disruptors of LATAM to come to work for Yape, right? And probably at the bank, we wouldn't have been so successful. So it's that long-term conviction that you need to do things differently to really disrupt them.
Let's talk a bit about the new verticals, but specifically, let's talk about your process behind the scenes launching these new products. I mean, you've told me you're a very hands-on guy, right? Your approach is very hands-on. You like to get involved in the operation as much as possible. How does that influence your process when you go out and launch new products?
So, I mean, part of Yape's original success, I think, was simplicity, right? For the first 5 years in Yape, the only things you can do was yapear, which is yapear is like sending a Yape. Today, it has become a verb in Peru. So sending a transfer through Yape, it's yapear. It's literally a verb. So you could only yapear to a P2P, to a phone number, or to a QR code. And that simplicity allowed us to scale and gain a lot of traction against users that are less sophisticated digitally. I mean, and within those users. And that was, for one side, it was very helpful. The second, it was very simple to do that. And we had the absolute best experience to be able to do a payment. And that was very positive for scaling. It wasn't, but if we want to develop a business, we need to develop other functionalities where we can get revenue. The positive thing was the scaling, and that the bar for experience was very high. I mean, anything we launch has to be as simple as doing a yapeo. I mean, that's, I think, the bar for simplicity and for experience. You need to go 2 clicks. If you did it once, it should be much easier. I mean, it's like a repeat use, etc. And that was the philosophy. Then we said, okay, what do we? That's what we need to do when we launch a new vertical. What should we start with? And the natural thing was payments. And say, okay, there are a ton of other payments where we have high usage, recurrence, engagement. Again, whatever we use or we develop should be used by millions of people, not by hundreds or thousands. I mean, it has to be used by millions of people. So the most natural fit, our first product, was mobile top-ups. 65%, 70% of the phones in Peru are prepaid phones that they need to buy top-ups, typically 3 or 4 times a month. Once a week, people do a top-up of their phones. When we launched, 70% of those top-ups were done in cash, in small mom-and-pop shops, in the corners, and in every place, which was a pain, right? You had to either go to a corner, go to a small store, etc., to recharge your phone, and it didn't work without it. We built a process that was so simple. It was, okay, I want to top up my phone. Yes, your number, yes, or put a new number. And it was literally 2 or 3 buttons. We agreed with all the 4 big telcos here in Peru. And we launched this, I think, amazing experience. Within 2 years, more than half of the top ups of the country are now done in Yape. And I think at the beginning, and this is probably my role, I mean, I was very involved, obviously, in the details, in top ups, understanding, questioning a little bit with the team, what's going on, the experience, can we improve it a little bit? Because it was our baby, our first product after the payments. No? After top ups, we kind of start saying, okay, what will be next? Bill payments, paying in a POS, remittances, exchanges. So we developed kind of a roadmap of payments, of everyday payments that will help Yaperos. And this was kind of our first evolution of going from Yape as a wallet to Yape as the solution that simplifies your day-to-day life, makes your day-to-day life easier. That's kind of the reason behind. So we launched a bunch of payments. Our second approach or our second business line is around lending. We said, okay, Peruvians, only like 5 or 6 million adults in Peru work with the financial system, out of 20 million adults, or have a loan with the financial system, I would say. We said, okay, we need to build a product which can help us lend to the vast majority of the population in Peru, which is informal population that doesn't have a steady income, that might be doesn't have a track record with a financial system, and the financing they do is typically informal, in the neighborhood, very high interest rates, etc. And we developed a product that fitted very well with that population, which is a 200 soles loan, which is like $60 for 30 days, right? And automatically repaid, etc. And yes, actually yesterday we reached our 3 million loans we've done in 18 months. So we're doing like 360,000 loans a month today. It is a product that Yaperos love and really develop. Again, very simple. Hey, this is the amount. Do you want 150, 200, or 250 soles? It's going to be repaid in 30 days. One click and it's disbursed. Then we kind of continue. Hey, maybe for the ones that we already get to know, should we develop maybe it's a 4 installment loan and say, okay, it's for 6 months, etc., and continue evolving that product around the needs of the Yapero. It's not, hey, we have this product and we go and distribute. We build them around the needs of our Yaperos and continue evolving towards those new or additional needs. Our aspiration is to double the amount of people or the number of people that have a debt with a financial system through Yape. So we want in a few years to have at least 5 million Yaperos with a debt, which is, again, the number of 5 million hasn't changed in almost a decade. Today, we want to double that very closely. And I think that reflects a lot of the types of products we bring, how do we simplify, and we really think a lot on which pain do we want to solve, how to solve it, and will it be used by a lot of people. If it doesn't meet those criteria, it's very tough for a new product to be launched in Yape.
Yeah.
Then our next thinking was, hey, if we want to simplify day-to-day lives of Peruvians or of Yaperos, can we help bring the e-commerce to more Peruvians? What we're seeing in Peru is that the e-commerce is also very concentrated in a part of the population. So that's when we started and say, okay, we have, I mean, if you want to be a successful e-commerce, you need 1, traffic, 2, a good product, 3, a capacity to distribute that product, and 4, a payment method, right? We have 1 of 4. Can we get partners to bring their products and their capacity to distribute to help reach this population that doesn't use e-commerce so significantly? The initial product fit that we found was, hey, maybe let's bring promotions, and so that you can buy whatever, a Whopper, 10 soles instead of 15 soles, right? If you pay through Yape, and we send traffic, and restaurants and movie theaters are willing to, or are really want that traffic to send to their stores, etc. We've become the number 1 promotion platform in the country. We have over 1 million promos every month. And then more recently, last year, we we launched our own marketplace within Yape, right? The Yape tienda or the Yape store, if you want to call it, where we sell a number of products that it's I mean, you can buy a TV, you can buy everything, but what we're seeing is customers starting to interact with e-commerce for the first time, buying a bit lower ticket items, maybe headphones, maybe a small backpack, and they're starting to use e-commerce for the first time. We included things like gaming that you can buy, some credit for different games, or we also bought a ticketing company, so football, soccer matches, concerts, you can go within Yape, and that is generating kind of this great vibe around Yape that is everywhere. I mean, you can find a lot of things within Yape. Very simple experience. That's probably our biggest challenge and the highest bar, and solve a lot of your day-to-day issues through Yape. I think that is the mentality we apply in everything we do.
Certainly on the road of becoming a super app. Question: I know you mentioned that you listen to the customers and that informs you what to launch next. But do you think there's any truth to? I believe it was Henry Ford was saying if you ask the people what they want, they would have asked for faster horses.
Yeah.
And I think Steve Jobs also subscribed to that. Now you're in financial services, so there's a finite number of products, but still, like, what's your reaction to that type of philosophy when it comes to
there is
launching new
a
products?
you don't know what you don't know, no, or what will help you going forward. So I would say our first, nobody asked us, hey, can you build a store in Yape so that I can buy a headphone or a TV set? Probably it was much more natural when we had the Yapeo to say, hey, maybe you can do the top ups, you can pay your bills, you can, because it was a payment platform. But I think it's a mix of understanding the customer needs, the, I would say, expressed needs, and there are non-expressed needs, right? Because people might today feel very comfortable going to the store to buy their day-to-day stuff, or even going to the store in the corner to buy their mobile top-up, minutes or megas. As soon as you put what we do is we understand what the customers does, what the Yapero does, and where do they spend their time, what are they doing, and then we think, okay, what can we do to make that experience or that day-to-day easier, and then show them that it's possible to do Yape train. I mean, something that doesn't need any training. That's very important. So that the experience is 2 clicks. You don't need somebody to coach you how to top up your phone or how to pay for a TV in Yape. And our finding is that when we put a good product that solve the non-expressed needs, because I mean they do what they're doing in Yape in other places, right? But if we find, hey, it's easier, you have the guarantee, they trust us because they know we've been there for them. We're one of the most loved brands in the country. It really helps kick off and start and accelerate that escalation in of any product, scaling of any product very fast. When we've launched products where it's tougher to identify the need, or we kind of suspect, hey, there is a need here because there's a lot of informality in this market, there might be a space for us to sell this product, and it's not a clear fit, we haven't scaled as fast. I mean, we faced those challenges. I remember we as a group, we have kind of an investment startup, which is for simple investments, etc. We put it in Yape, and we weren't so successful. Probably because the Yapero was thinking, hey, Yape is for my transactional needs and for me buying payments. I think we're a bit too early on that. It didn't connect, and I think that's a result. But again, what you need to have is this flexible platform where you can experiment. I mean, you try, you think, you do a lot. We have a lot of designers. I mean, really understand, try to think, hey, this will really connect. A few times it won't. Most of the times, at least until now, we've been successful. But you do need to anticipate what users could use digitally or would like to do it digitally.
In a world where you have 80% of the population of Peru as a user of Yape, is the war on cash over? Have you won?
I would say we're winning battles. I don't think we've won the war. Even though we've grown exponentially, and I literally mean we do believe we are winning the battles, but the overall war, there's still a lot of space to growth. Just as an example, today in Yape, last month we paid, or Yape, 55 billion soles, more or less. Okay, that's like $6-7 billion of outgoing payments through Yape. The whole acquiring network, all of Visa, Mastercard, etc., is less than half of that. Okay, in absolute terms, it's probably $4 billion. But we're still growing at 2x a year. So we've doubled more than doubled since July of last year, both in number of transactions and in amount. If we were reaching the limit, you would start plateauing, no? And not continue growing or doubling every 12 months. We're growing, more than 10% a month. So we do think we're on the right direction. There is also other apps that have come and helped us kind of increase this digital payments ecosystem. But I think it'll be a few years before we can say, hey, we've won the war on cash, no?
One thing that we talked about when we spoke in the past, and I think there's something also that Gianfranco mentioned to me, and it's that when you fall into BAU, business as usual, that's when you fail, right? And that's, I think, a philosophy that you guys have. What do you mean by that?
So I think when you, this is a very tough one, no? When they ask me, hey, what's your role in Yape? What do you do in Yape? I think my role is to continue pushing everyone, no? I don't do anything in Yape. I help others execute, do more. And part of that is, hey, we've achieved a lot, but there's way more than we can do in the future. And it's never business as usual, right? And sometimes they kind of tell me, hey, stop sometimes to celebrate. I mean, it's important to celebrate accomplishments. I remember when the team leader of lending, or the small loans came and we have a bell, right, to celebrate. We reached 100,000 loans for the first time, which was unthinkable. We never thought that we would do 100,000 loans in a month. The discussion half an hour later was, okay, and when do we reach to 500,000 loans? What do we need to do? What's next? What do we continue to push? And we need to find an equilibrium because we achieved a lot of things, but I do believe, and we believe, I think, with the top team in Yape in general and in Credit Corp, that the opportunity is so big that you can't stop, right? You can't be, it's business as usual, let's just operate. So that means that you're always challenging yourself, sending kind of this aspiration. We have recently defined 4 cultural principles in Yape. Again, we grew a lot as a different team. We knew we had a different culture, but we hadn't defined it. A year ago or a bit more, we launched our culture. And probably the most important principle is we make irrational goals a reality. Okay, so our goals are irrational for many, and like it was when we started. When we said, okay, let's reach 1 million Yaperos, everybody laughed. When we said, okay, now it's 10 million, people laughed. So that's what we do in everything new we do. When we launched the marketplace of the retail, we said we want to be the number 1 e-commerce in Peru, and we had never even sold a toaster, right? And we had defined an ambition that is very bold, but that's how we work. And we say, okay, let's do that. Okay, in order to do that, we need senior team that has experience. So we've recruited a team. We need to build a platform. We need to develop, and we continue moving towards that direction. We've done that in everything we're doing. And my role, I think, in Yape is continue pushing that target. And we have an amazing team that executes and always, very resilient, always looking to find ways to make things. If you hit a wall, you go back, you rethink, we go again. And I think that's a bit the history of Yape. We never discuss targets. So the target discussion is kind of 10 minutes. Okay, next year, what do we want to do? Okay, 10x here, 3x here, 50x here. Okay, how do we do it? And that's where the discussion happens. What do we need to make that a possibility? I think the traditional business, the mothership, the banks, the other more established company, there is a very relevant discussion around budgets and what is the target, the aspiration, etc., which I think has to be there because of the size, because of the maturity of the business, etc. But if we want to be the disruptors and evolve, we need to think and operate very differently than traditional business.
Can I ask you? Can I ask you something before we run out of time? In a country like Peru, where traditionally cash has been dominant and in-person transactions have been dominant, when you grow a digital business, you probably have to partner with these physical allies, right? And call it like the corner store or anything else, a newspaper stand. Can you share more about this part of your strategy?
Yeah. So since we launched Yape, it's a digital business, but highly physical in terms of acquisition or connection with users. We invested a lot to connect with users. We started with a branch network of people training clients of the bank to say, hey, this is Yape, you can use it, it's easier. So the initial scaling of Yape was a lot based on BCP's presence and the bank's presence and the capacity to convince clients that this will be very useful. Then we had to go to the informal world. And for people that don't know Peru, what we call modern retail, which is what's called retail in most of the world, right? Supermarkets, big stores, etc., only account for like 30% or 40% of the economy in Peru. 60, 70% of goods of any type, I mean, you can go from electronics to grocery and everything, are sold by very small entrepreneurs, micro business people that have their stand. Everybody has a small business. So getting to convince that people, and never used to work with banks or the financial system, I was all cash based. Getting to convince that part of the population, the business owners, etc., that hey, you can collect through Yape, you need to brand. It's a trade marketing effort. It's very similar to what Coca-Cola does or the beer companies. And to walk around the cities, we have hundreds of people that go and we call it baptize the commerce. So they put your QR, they print it, have the Yape going. I remember in the beginning, Rufino, who is kind of the founder of Yape or the day-to-day leader since the start, he used to get on taxis, and while they were kind of between, he said, continue doing your job, getting passengers, and I'll help you affiliate. And they literally sat down and had these conversations, and they put the QR in the back seat and started affiliating taxis like that. So it's a very physical exercise to get to know people. Today, we have the advantage that we have so many Yaperos that our main customer acquirers, if you want. It's not that we do spend a lot in digital marketing. It's our own Yaperos saying, hey, I want to pay you. You don't have Yape? Hey, download it. I'll show you. So it's our own Yaperos, our fans that incentivize other people to download Yape. And we continue growing every month in like 250, 300,000 people thanks to that. The only way of achieving that is really having a very strong connection with the Yaperos. One of our, or another core cultural value is passionate about every Yapero, right? We really dedicate a ton of time, a ton of effort to make sure Yaperos are fans. They're not clients. They are our fans. They love Yape. The way we talk to them through our social networks, if they contact us and we WhatsApp them, what channels they use, the way when we've had some trouble in the past, if we had a stability issue one day, we went out and we gave away hundreds of thousands of meals to make it up, and we asked for forgiveness because we really want to connect with them and we really connect to the population. That has allowed us in 7 years to build a brand that today is recognized probably as one of the top brands in the country, because we do things very differently. And if we didn't do that, it will be much harder to affiliate new customers, to connect to this informal economy, etc. So I think that's the other part of the magic of Yape. One is kind of the vision at the beginning of the long term, of the relevance of investing, of leveraging kind of our parenting advantage of being part of Credit Corp. But on the second time is really connecting to every user. Every Yapero is a fan, and if anybody has a problem, we solve it right away. If they're in doubt, we help make it very easy. We're very cautious about anything related to avoid anything like fraud or things like that. So it is a style, I think, within Yape that everybody's accountable for that, and that has allowed us to build this very unique network of fans, I would say.
And when it comes to running Yape, is there something that keeps you up at night?
So what? So two things I would say, no, or maybe three things. Let's see my top things. One is definitely, hey, we can't fail today. The Peruvian economy depends on us. If Yape is out for a year, we have a operation stability issue for 1 hour, that means that 100,000 people got into a taxi and couldn't pay it when they went out. So it's a huge issue for 100,000 people. They didn't have how to pay their taxi, right? So it's not like, oh, it's only 1 hour. We're still 99.9% stable. No, it's a huge issue. And those types of things, it's our number one priority, is our necessary condition, if you want, for all of our teams. That's non-negotiable at all. So I would say that's one of my top priorities. The second for me is, how do we continue? What's next? No, I mean, I typically wake up and say, hey, this is what I thought. I write it down, so that how do we keep thinking of the next 3 years or 5 years and pushing and say, what are the next either businesses, the aspirations, what else can we do? We went to Bolivia. We have 2 million Yaperos in Bolivia. We launched a year ago. So those are part of the reflection of what's next and going on. And the third one I would say is, how do we keep this connection with Yaperos and society in general? Part of the risks of every successful company or brand is when you become too big is, hey, do people start looking at you different? Do you operate differently? What are the concerns? And we want to avoid that. I mean, we are in a happy moment, I would say. I mean, we have a very strong relationship with the client. How do we make sure that doesn't change over time? How do we keep having fans every time? And what are we going to do? And we're always thinking about launching new initiatives, connecting, supporting different social projects. So to make sure that doesn't change over time, and that we continue having this. So it's never going back to the comment. It's never BAU, right? There's not 2 days the same in Yape. We're always thinking on these new things and this aspiration.
Any favorite books that you find yourself recommending or reading often?
So I'm not so much of a book or reading. So I read a lot more like in the what's going on, trends. I might get I recently read the book on Amazon to understand the key business. That's a bit what keeps me up and being very informed. I'm more passionate about sports, football, definitely, or soccer in the US. So my weekends I spend more time watching soccer or taking my kids to play soccer and kind of connecting a little bit more than the reading. So definitely they're very relevant books, but not.
Nothing like good football. Peru makes it to the World Cup. It's going to be exciting to see Peru play in the US. I'm sure we'll see you here.
Yeah, not me. Definitely. If we get there, I went to Russia when we went there, and then it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I was there as well, and the country that had sent the most amount of fans, I think, was Peru or Mexico, one of the two.
No, Peru was the one. I remember. I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere in Russia, and there were 50,000 Peruvians in the stadium. Right? It was like, wow.
Amazing. Well, Raimundo, thank you so much for sharing this. It's an amazing story, the one of Yape. I mean, it's obvious to me that there's so much more you guys can do, but clearly you're having a huge impact in the country, and I'm going to be following closely. I'm excited to keep seeing the successes.
Definitely. Thank you for having me here, and congratulations on your podcast. It's amazing. I get it every time I can, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. Gracias. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this great episode with Raimundo from Yape. If you want more interviews, make sure to subscribe, follow, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever you get your shows. It helps and truly means a lot. And if you have any suggestions or thoughts about the show, just drop me a line on Twitter or LinkedIn. Signing off till next week, I'm your host, Miguel Armaza. The Fintech Leaders podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or investment advice.